What's up, y'all? Y'all are listening to Living Corporate's flagship podcast. If you didn't know, Living Corporate helps organizations build employee engagement and market trust through data analytics and data transformation, our e-learning platform, and brand marketing storytelling. We're so excited for you to be here today. The conversation you're about to hear is going to connect the dots between employee experience and go-to-market effectiveness. If you're not ready, get ready. Here we go. Tara May, what is going on? Welcome to Living Corporate. How are you doing?
Living our best life, aren't we?
You know, I think we're doing the best we can, for sure. You know, you and I were just talking off mic, like, long time coming, talked about, you know, the fact that I have these infant newborns, twins, and so I've been underwater. We've rescheduled this 1,000 times. So glad we're finally able to, like, get connected. And then you shared that you also have twins.
I do. My twins are 14, and do you know that today is their first day of high school?
First day of high school. Oh my gosh. You know, what's interesting. Today was, so of course we have the infant twins, but we also have a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. Well, she's really closer to 3. Her birthday's in October, but, the 5-year-old started kindergarten on Tuesday. And so, a lot of emotions there.
Do you know, Zach, that we have parallel lives apparently, because my twins were also my 3rd and 4th. And I remember life with 4 under 5. Gosh. And you could not pay me enough money to go back. I think I've blacked it all out, right? So like, if anyone understands what your life is like, it is me,
Tara,
my friend.
You know what? So it's crazy, right? So my wife, like, we get on Reddit trying to figure out, like, are there any hacks? Are there any ways to, like, and everybody's like, no, it's just going to be really hard for, like, years, right? Like the first 12 to 18 months.
The hack is time.
Hey, that's a bar. The hack is time.
It is.
You know,
it's just get through it.
And just keep pushing, right?
Keep pushing. And someday, I promise you this, someday you will have so much free time because they'll be off being teenagers, etc. I have 2 in college and 2 in high school now. And you'll be like, what happened? Where are they? And you'll look back and go, you know what? I'm glad for that time. That was happy chaos, right? That's all. I'm gonna tell you,
and look, and like we are, like, just by the grace of God, like, we're not looking out for our next meal. But man, I do feel like, I need to make like 3 more Living Corporates. Like, there's a lot of kids around here. I'm trying to talk to, it's a lot of kids, 4 kids. It's a lot, Tara.
It is so many kids, and kids are so friggin' expensive. And I will also say this to you. So first of all, you'll feel rich when they all go to school because the childcare costs go down, right? But then you'll feel poor again when they go to college. And even though that's what you've been saving for, right? Like, it's the whole reason you've got the 529 plans and you've got the life savings account. Still, when you write those checks, you're like, oh my God, there goes my life savings. Where did it go?
Gosh. Yeah. So you're actually, there's a chaotic beauty in this season, this moment. I'm so glad we're able to sit down, and look, I say this often, and I mean it, right? That, like, Living Corporate, we probably get about like 5 to 6 pitches a week. Some weeks are a little crazy. Sometimes we get like 10 plus pitches. What stuck out to me about the pitch that came through for you was the business that you lead and the work that you do. I didn't give a huge preamble introduction at the top of this. We got right to it, but talk to me about Aspiritech. Talk to me about the brand, how it came to be, and what, in your perspective, makes it unique.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised to hear you say that, because even though I'm biased, Aspiritech is awesome, but it's also really unique. So I am CEO of the organization. We are a nonprofit, technically by tax status, right? We have a 501c3, And we have a mission, a really amazing mission of meaningful employment for autistic adults. But in every conceivable way, we are a tech company. We do tech services for Fortune 500 companies, for small organizations, quality assurance, web development, accessibility testing, cybersecurity, but all done by an operations team that is 100% autistic.
Wow.
And while we're really good at tech, I like to say that our core competency is creating an amazing workplace where absolutely everyone can reach their fullest potential. And I feel like that's why we resonated immediately with each other.
I was so inspired, and thank you, Aspiritech. Thank you. I was so inspired by that mission and by your employee makeup. I was intrigued, and I'm just thinking like, man, what is that like? And I think also like so Living Corporate historically, like we started really centering like Black experiences, and then we expanded to Black and Brown, then to like just historically marginalized experiences across the board. And now we are talking about just employee experience, period, and then experience for everybody. Like, I'm so curious, why do you think that disability is often one of the most under-engaged topics around, like, when we talk about marginalized experience? I don't know if we always I don't think we center disability enough. Right? I think we talk about race, we talk about identity, we talk about gender, we talk about sexual orientation. And if we talk about disability, oftentimes when I say we, I mean like the collective popularized we're talking about like visible disability, maybe you're missing a limb or of some sort, but we're not always we're not often thinking about invisible disabilities or mental disability. We're just not thinking about that. I'm curious, like, why do you think it's so underengaged?
So I think you just made two really great points as to the why. One is we just forget, right? When we're talking about inclusion, there are certain things we think of all the time and certain things that we forget about all the time. I think we forget about disability and we forget about socioeconomic status, which is a really critical piece to people's mobility employment-wise. And then the second thing that you just mentioned is that some disabilities are visible and some are invisible. And we forget about things that aren't in front of our eyes, right? But I also feel like those marginalized experiences are so relatable to each other and so allied with each other that we can just do more when we lift each other up. And I'll give you a great example. We have this incredible partnership with a Chicago-based organization called the Male Mogul Initiative. And the Male Mogul Initiative is all about creating employment opportunities for young Black men. And I met the leader of this organization. And as we started talking, you might think that the autistic community and the young Black male community have very little in common, but it's not true, right? You have groups of people that have been undersold to larger society, right? Stigmatized in a lot of ways, absolutely underestimated. And then that creates systemic barriers to employment. And so both of our organizations are all about reducing that stigma, reducing those barriers, and offering employment to two groups of people who have so much value to offer in the workplace. And so to me, it's really about taking groups of people who have been underestimated and saying, look at what's possible when you recognize their value.
And what's also interesting about that, to your point, is when you intersect, especially like autism, the folks on the spectrum, it's like various communities are diagnosed at different rates than others, right? And so Black men, and certainly Black women, like autism may show up differently within various at the intersection of various communities than it does in like majority white spaces, right? And also autism as a spectrum is so 100%. Different.
100%. Well, first of all, autism is complicated because it is such a spectrum. But to your point, the BIPOC community is absolutely underdiagnosed. The female population is absolutely underdiagnosed. And then you have bigger problems as those communities become adults, because the lack of resources follows us from childhood into adulthood, and you haven't been given the same access, right? And then also there's just societal stigma in general, right? So my son, who is my sort of driving passion, he is autistic and he is biracial. And I have a lot of concerns, for example, about his interactions with the public, and things that worry me, because he is not a typical 14-year-old, but he is now a 5'10" young man of color, right? And he will be probably a 6'2" person of color who isn't always have the best social skills, right? And can seem like he is being, let's say, non-compliant. And that is worrisome to me.
Well, I mean, like, to your point about non-compliance, he's also a teenager.
That's so real.
Like,
that child non-compliant with me all the day, like, every day.
He's a teenager. So like, I remember being 14 and like, it's being like, hey man, I don't want to do that. Or who are you not going to tell me what, whatever. Like, I just remember that season. So no, absolutely received. But I want
that underdeveloped frontal lobe, right?
So irrespective of a disability, right? And so, but I hear that. And so I think there's something powerful about recognizing the interconnectedness of all these marginalized experiences, and recognizing that no one group is just in a vacuum seal from any other group, right?
No, it's not. We're not one thing, right? Identity is so complex and so multifaceted and so deeply intimate and personal, right? And it affects our self-esteem, our confidence, and therefore our ability to articulate what we can bring to the world and what we can bring to the workplace. And so as much of that as we can, undo and lift up instead of tamper down, that's my entire reason. It's my why.
I was going to ask, like, the why behind, like, prioritizing and really focusing on those on the autism spectrum for your employee base. Like, was there a moment in your life? Was it like, what was the moment that, if there was a moment that said, you know what, no, this is who I'm going to employ, and here's how we're going to shape the world through the work that we do? Like, what did that look like?
I would say it's less of a moment and more of a journey, right? So my son's first diagnosis at the age of 2 was global developmental delay, which basically means your kid's not developing like everyone else, but we don't know why, right? And he was not speaking. In fact, he didn't really become verbal and articulately verbal until 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, right? And so I'm going on this journey to try to be the best mom I can to him, to help understand what his needs are, to even get a name for his needs, right? Which eventually 3 years later was an autism diagnosis. And I came to just really fall in love with the concept of neurodiversity, which really means that all of our brains are unique and complicated, and we all are human with needs. We have 86 billion neurons firing and creating and impacting the way we experience the world. And we don't talk about it. I'm a management and leadership book junkie. I've probably read 100, and none of them ever mention your brain, right? But if you want to understand your team and motivate your team and create a culture your team can thrive in, shouldn't we think about the way people learn and communicate and socialize and experience innovation and drive forward the workplace? I would think we should, right? And so I became really passionate about this. And when I started to understand that the autistic unemployment rate was about 80%, despite the fact that autistic people are incredibly capable, incredibly talented, incredibly loyal employees, innovative problem-solving employees, I think, you pair a problem with an opportunity and you have a business model.
That's incredible. I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about like the work that you do and you lead in, in this moment. I feel like the workplace, like there's so much work continuing to be offshored, delegated away. How is your business model holding on? How is your organization holding on in this tumultuous economic season?
We're holding on beautifully, right? Now, there's a few things that make it a little bit easier for us in this weird moment in time. One is that we have never had any federal funding, right? And so we, like a lot of nonprofits, sort of went into panic mode this year, right? And we didn't have to. Our business model is just that. It is a business model. Our client revenue is driven by the high value work that we do. And the advent of AI has only created more opportunities for us. There's more data work to be done than ever before, right? There's more emerging tech than ever before. The pace is incredible. So for us to be a tech services company in this moment, feels like a great place to be, right? I mean, even thinking about cybersecurity, which is our newest line of business, this is an area that's only growing and the need is only growing. So while it's a tough macroeconomic environment, I think that's true. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Our services are still in demand. And so we are still able to grow. That said, I think whenever the larger economy is struggling, that hits services organization. It impacts everyone. So we're just holding on and hoping that the chaotic macroeconomics globally, and especially here in the US, that we're all able to push through.
Listen,
those.
I'm right there with you. There's so many conversations I'm having, some on the record, but many off the record with leaders like at like Fortune 1000 companies, but also of course like smaller professional services shops, consulting firms, independents, things of that nature, where it's just like everyone's getting squeezed, right? And I think there's also this landscape where it's not just like a crackdown on quote unquote DEI, but like almost like a divestment from employee experience or HR people oriented initiatives overall.
Totally. And when you're talking about the war for talent a few years ago, and everything about the war for talent was treat employees well, right? Here's all the benefits you should offer. Here's all the upskilling you should offer. Here's what you should invest in for your team. Well, now all of a sudden, when we're in layoff mode, we don't give a crap about employees and the employee experience, right? Because the demand shifted to the employer benefits.
Right.
And that hurts the conversations around employee experience. And when I talk to people, same as you, I argue against that very hard. I truly believe there is a return on investment for kindness in the workplace. And that return is going to be innovation and growth. If you expect your employees to move at the pace of digital and the pace of AI in 2025, you have to give them psychological safety. You have to give them a place where they can fail fast and lift each other up, and where they are productive and engaged. And you do not do that by treating them like crap, right? You do that by investing in them and treating them kindly. And there is a payoff to that. And I think organizations that go against that, they feel it. They feel it in their PR. They feel it in their marketing. They feel it in their customers. We're seeing that with some of the big tech companies right now.
It's interesting because what you just described, despite the fact that, to your point, your organization, all of your employees are on the autism are on the spectrum, that what you described that they need are the same things that everybody needs.
Absolutely. When we think about neurodiversity, it's making the world better for all of us. And I think this expectation that we are not humans 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is ridiculous. We don't stop being humans from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. That's absurd. Today, in 2025, we are asked to be on all the time. And that should also mean that we are allowed to be humans all the time. And the things that we can do to make workplaces better, like you said, for autistic people, make them better for absolutely everyone, right? Sensory experiences, communication styles, the way we learn and socialize, thinking about all of those things is going to give you happier and more productive employees. 100%.
Overall, I think like to your point, right? Like there's this, I want to talk about AI with you in a minute, but like before we get there, like there's this, there seems to be this lack of comprehension, understanding of balance, right? So like, well, I think almost like an algebraic equation, like, hey, what you do to one side, you got to do to the other side. So like, if you are discounting employee experience, you'd be a fool to not understand that that's going to impact your customer experience, right? Like if you're not going to invest in healthy, trusting, respectful, transparent experiences for your employees, why would that not somehow, those same employees that are responsible for engaging or helping you drive into the market, why do you think that your customers would be immune from that, right? And I wonder if tech will ever if big tech will ever turn the corner and make that understanding. But as we're looking at these job reports, as we look at all these layoff reports, I just don't know when that's going to happen.
I'm not sure either. The tide always seems to ebb and flow in both directions, over the course of time. But I feel like we're in such an unpredictable moment right now. I mean, even when you listen to seasoned economists, nobody has really an idea what to expect because it's such a chaotic economic environment, right? So I don't think any of us have good answers to that question. But my driving force is to do the right thing for the business and for humans, right? And I think there are a lot of leaders who want to do that, who want to follow both of those ethos. Whether or not that exists at certain big tech companies, I don't think it does, because I think we're so disjointed from reality. They're so far from their users.
And speaking of which, right, it's strange. Now, look, I don't know how often you listen, or if you've listened to Living Corporate before you got on the show, but I've been fairly consistent on my critiques of just the reality of our late stage capitalist society, right? And I struggle because it's 2025. We have more technology than we've ever had, and yet we continually are getting increasingly disconnected, and not just I'm saying space between everyone is increasing. So space between the poor middle class continue to create space. In fact, we're seeing the middle class continue to erode, and the poverty class increase. We're seeing billionaires become increasingly rich. But I'm saying just organizationally and strategically, we're seeing increasing separation from mid-level managers to their direct reports. We're seeing separation from individual contributors and frontline leaders. We're seeing separation and expectation understanding from executive leadership teams and their junior executive class. We're just seeing, despite the fact that all this tech continues to roll out, we're seeing continuing pressures from executive leadership teams to work in the office, despite we having way more opportunities and tools and resources to work in a variety of different, really compelling, creative, innovative ways. And my question with all of that is, when you think about generative AI, I'm not going to talk about AI. I think AI is broad, and AI has been used for several decades in various ways. There's all types of machine learning. These things have been around for quite a while. But we talk about this era of AI, which we're largely talking about generative AI. Where do you think its place is in the world of work? Do you believe because I think there's a spectrum, right? Like, no pun. I think there's people who say, hey, it's a scam. People say, hey, it's a scam. It's harmful for community. Some people say, no, this is the future. We need to reshape our agreements on how on our societal agreements. Like, where do you stand on this technology?
So I have been in the digital transformation space for about 25 years now. And what I have seen is these moments in time where there's an inflection point, right? So 25 years ago, high-speed internet was a major inflection point, right? All of a sudden, access to everything became digital ubiquitously. And then we had another inflection point with the iPhone, because then it went from just being high speed at home and at work to absolutely everywhere, high powered computer in our hands. I think there was another inflection point with the pandemic, when all of a sudden there was demand for everything to go digital, food ordering, healthcare, absolutely everything. And I think we are at a fourth point now with generative AI. And I have a few philosophies on those inflection points that have shaped my thinking in my career. One is that you cannot be scared of it, right? I think companies that fear it end up getting left behind. That said, you have to decide in your industry and in your organization how you are going to use it to transform, to push forward, to do good things, and to do smart and strategic things. So I think being scared and ignoring it is not the answer and not helpful to anyone. But I do think you need to be thoughtful about the how and the what and the why of implementation for your industry and for your organization. So I tend to be a bit of a realist, right? Like I don't want to be overly optimistic and say generative AI is going to solve everything, because it won't, right? But I don't love, end of the worlders either, right? It's all over. We're all going to shit. This is the end. I think we have to forge our path, and that has to be deliberate. And hopefully it will also be well-intended, right? I mean, artificial intelligence is the mimic of human intelligence. That is what it is attempting to do. But it isn't there, right? I mean, I mentioned 86 billion neurons firing in the human brain. The smartest AI on the planet can only simulate 2 billion neurons. It has a long way to go. And it is going to come with the perils of human intelligence, the built-in biases, et cetera, that we have to then try to push back against, right? So I tend not to be an extremist in either direction. I say forge your path. Figure out what your path is with this tool, because that's essentially what all of technology is. It is a tool for us to shape our lives, our organizations, and society.
I'm right there with you. I think there's certain technology that, I take that back. I don't know if there's any technology that is inherently bad. But I do believe that like the pressure to make money and extract from other people or like exploit people can turn technology. You have bad outcomes, right? So like, there's tools out there, there's drones out there that can sense heat signatures through buildings. That's awesome technology. Like you think about like, let's say like there's some type of like disaster and you're trying to find people and get them out. But that technology can also be used in like other really dangerous and nefarious ways. There's technology that can like when you think about generative AI, there's things that it can do in terms of like helping you flesh out ideas or summarize large bunch of unformatted qualitative data. There's all types of great application that I believe is really great for like life and an experience enrichment, right? But so
I could not agree more. Yeah. It's not the size of the tool, it's how you use it, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I was gonna say, and but like to this point, right, is like there's something to be said about like looking at technology as something to make lives better, to make experiences richer. I never forget we had like the chief people officer at the time of Glassdoor. His name was Danny Guillory, and this might have been like a year and a half ago. But we were talking. This was right when generative AI was like when ChatGPT was really kept picking up steam, and the token limits were much smaller than they are today. But anyway, and we're saying like, look, like the minute that you start looking at tech, I think the minute you start looking at technology and saying, how can I use this tech to like cut all these jobs? That's when you're getting into dangerous territory, because the reality is like there's great application, but most, like you just talked about, it is replicating or imitating intelligence. Generative AI is in itself not intelligent, right? Like it's gathering and organizing information, and it can be really powerful in the right hands, but it also be like really destructive or just like chaos creating in the other hands. And so, I'm right there with you. I want to go back a bit to your business and building effective employee experiences and healthy cultures. When you think about how you engage and communicate, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I want to double down a bit further. Like when you think about how you engage and communicate and build relationship, and also like course correct and for leadership development and things of that nature with your employees who are on the spectrum, what do you notice for like in your experience that you believe is different than what you may encounter if your employees were not all on the spectrum? Like, is there anything that you're like, hey, these are things that we practice very specifically and intentionally here because of who we are? Or is it just, hey, no, I have these guiding principles. This is what I do. That's it.
Well, first, let me underscore a point you made earlier, and it's applicable to your question. You were like, listen, I got some issues with late stage capitalism, right? And what you just said, there's always going to be people talking about generative AI and how to use it to cut jobs. There's always going to be people trying to figure out how to cut jobs and make the biggest margin and the most money possible, always. That is always going to exist, right? It goes back as far as the early stages of capitalism. How can I watch out for myself and make the most money and get the most done with the least people, right? And what's different about Aspiritech, and I think is something really special, is we are a social enterprise model. So with our revenue, which is business driven and value driven, we have as our mission to use that revenue for our people, for their raises, for their bonuses, for their quality of life, for their upskilling and training. And that social enterprise model is incredibly unique, too unique, in my opinion, because it's so powerful and could be used in so many industries and in so many ways, right? So that allows us to do things very uniquely, like care very deeply about our team members, always be thinking about their mental health, right? Which is certainly important with autistic and neurodivergent people, but is increasingly important with everyone. We are absolutely in the midst of a mental health crisis nationwide, right? We're able to constantly be thinking about more benefits and how we can treat our employees the best. Well, that's great for autistic people, and maybe their time PTO is even more critical, but it's important for all of us, right? We're constantly thinking about training and upskilling and developing of skills because autistic people are our mission and their career development is our mission, but that really benefits our business too, our business model, right? So I use these examples to answer your question to say how quickly translatable it is what we are doing to a wider population. And yes, it is probably even more imperative for autistic employees, but man, is it great for absolutely
I was
everybody.
about to say, it sounds like an incredible, it's a model that needs to be applied everywhere. You know what it makes me think about is like, you know, when you engage and seek to support the most marginalized in the community, it benefits everybody, right? Like I remember when I was in like high school or college, the idea of like sneakers with no laces were like they were mainly sold to like they were marketed for like elderly folks as well as folks with with physical disabilities. But like if you look now, like some of the most dope sneakers are ones that you don't lace up. Like all of my, like I got these 270s, these Nike 270s. I have a bunch of different shoes that they're laceless. You step into them and they have all the same art support and all the different things. And like I think a very simple example, but going back to what you're saying, like your model of being like employee forward, not just in the lip service, but the benefits you provide, the way that you work, the way that you communicate, the way that you team, that's just good business, period. It matters. Like, so I don't like saying it doesn't matter that all your employees on the script, because it does matter. It matters. And irrespective of that, that should not be a requirement for organizations that are exponentially larger than yours to just do better by their people.
Absolutely. I think what it does is it makes us more aware, right? And awareness is very powerful. And by the way, those laceless sneakers, also really great for women pregnant with twins who can't bend over and tie their shoes. And I'll give you another example. So the blur that exists on video conferencing, right? That was invented by an autistic UX person who was constantly getting distracted by people behind her. And now everybody uses it to hide kids and dogs and messy homes and whatever else we don't want to show in the background. So it's such a great example of how someone who's autistic acted as a canary in the coal mine, solving a problem for all of us, identifying a problem faster than the rest of us, but developing a solution that benefited everybody.
That's just so dope. You know, what would you say to organizations right now who, I mean, actually, hold on, I'm not going to be hypothetical. To your point, your org serves Fortune 500 organizations every day in the tech space and outside of the tech space. What guidance are you providing for them? And do you feel like any of it's getting through as it pertains to like workforce strategy and just like navigating this moment?
So the first and biggest piece of advice I give is to first recognize that you already have a neurodiverse workforce. So neurodiversity refers to 100% of us. Like I said earlier, we have all unique and complicated brains, but 1 in 5 of us is so outside the box that we're considered neurodivergent, whether that's autistic, ADHD, OCD, PTSD, all of these things, right, that make our brains different. So if you're talking about a big workforce, statistically, you already have a neurodiverse team, whether they're sharing it with you or not, whether they're diagnosed or not. There is neurodiversity on your team. Absolutely. So it's important to consider, right? And it will make your workplace better for everyone. It will lead to a hard return on investment through employee retention. We know how expensive it is to lose and replace employees. Engagement. We know how expensive lost productivity is. And innovation. We know that it's not okay to be a standstill organization in 2025. So 1, it already exists, and 2, it's critical to address. That last piece that you asked about, how receptive are people, that absolutely depends on the organization. But what I will say is that it is becoming more and more discussed. 10 years ago, you wouldn't have even heard about a conversation around neurodiversity. Now, I think we're seeing this great moment in time where neurodiversity employee resource groups are popping up. And because we're getting better at diagnosing children, I am constantly hearing stories of adults who are also getting diagnosed, and they want to be properly recognized and supported in the workplace. And don't we want our employees to be their best selves at work?
I mean,
of
of
course,
course we do. I think, earlier we were talking about like navigating the space of, you talked about mental health and like just the chaotic nature of this moment in the season. What a blessing it would be if your job was not like a detriment to your mental health in this moment, right? Like I'm looking outside, Tara, Living Corporate is not a political podcast. We just provide real talk in the corporate world. Let me take that back. Living Corporate is a political podcast. We're not a politics podcast. We're not a politics podcast, but we are by our very existence, I imagine, political, because we're talking about supporting employees and building better experiences and doing right by people. So by today's language, we're very political, but we're not a politics podcast. But what's interesting is, right, like I was just talking to my wife about this yesterday, and this is what I don't miss. Like I live in corporate, been focused on living corporate and the work that we've been doing now for a couple years, just full time. What I don't miss is like January 6th, like the Capitol was on fire and like I had to just go to work as if things weren't on fire. And like, I'm looking around and it's like, yo, like you got Trump sending the National Guard and like federal agents just patrolling DC. You got, you're looking at queer folks maybe about to lose their more rights. You have trans people under attack. You have a bunch of legislation that's actively impacting those on the spectrum, and like just a like administration that is highly receptive to, and frankly, regurgitating talking points from an era where those on the spectrum were seen as inferior. It's just a scary time. And so like the stress and annoyance of like having to then go to work and like not feel like that doesn't impact you at all, that you can't carry any of that with you. That just sounds like hell to me. No lie. It sounds like hell to me. So the fact that you've created an organization that is authentic and mindful and caring and attentive to your employees, I would imagine that's a blessing to be a part of. So I just want to like give you your flowers. Like that is dope, because it is awful outside. You know what I'm saying? And if you disagree with me, I ain't about to end the interview. I'm not assuming that you like if you go, well, Zach, it's actually not that bad. Like it's, but to like for my yeah.
Well, I will say this. I completely agree with you. I know that I can say my team absolutely agrees with you, but I will also say I'm an optimist. And I believe at the end of the day, a lot of people are feeling this pain and they are pushing back against it. And I also believe, to your point about it bringing it into the workplace, right? I once had someone react to one of my presentations by saying, well, what if I don't want their personal lives in the workplace? I think they should just leave it at home. And I was pausing and thinking and reflecting, like, how do I respond to this person? And someone in the audience actually did it for me. They said, they're bringing it, whether you like it or not, right? We are bringing our personal selves with us into work, and it's bullshit if you think people aren't. And the day that Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s remarks came out about autistic people, we paused, right? And we said, how is this impacting everyone? And how their identity was just trashed, right? How can we not pause and reflect on that? How can we not absolutely presume it's going to impact their day? And obviously that's very specific to our community, but it happens all the time. I'll give you another example. Our offices are north of Chicago. And when the mass shooting occurred at the Highland Park 4th of July parade, we were in the crime zone. So we had employees living there, attending the parade fleeing for their lives, leaving the community out of safety for their lives. And then our offices were shut down for weeks while that crime scene was under investigation. Should we pretend that that wasn't happening, that that doesn't exist, right? I was 90 days into my role as CEO of the organization, and we were moving into, is everyone alive and safe? Okay, now how do we deal with the trauma? How do we tell clients we can't get into our offices for several weeks and there's equipment there we might need to do our jobs, right? To pretend that the outside world doesn't impact inside an organization is bullshit.
Come on. And I think that's where we're at this point, right? We're like the veneer is gone. But like, and I've been saying this too, is like, so I'm 35. I turned 36 this year. I remember when I graduated from college in 2011, and like there was just a really very thick veneer of, we respect you. This is going to be a long-term place for you to work. You got 6 to 7 years. Here's your career ladder. Layoffs, what are those? We do that like when things are really bad, but like you're fine. Like, but it was a lot of that, right? Trust us. We want you to feel like you're part of a community here. Like, and like now it's just like, again, I don't know what it's like. I really don't. I don't know what it would be like to work at like some of the logos that I worked at early in my career. I don't know what it would feel like to work there now with everything going on when the world seems to be on fire, and where frankly brands, your leadership isn't interested or doesn't care how you feel about anything.
Well, and then we wonder why productivity goes down and there's high anxiety and people are quiet quitting. Gee, I wonder, what could it be?
Yeah. And I mean, and then like you compound that with the fact that you got Gen Z, one of the most diverse by every point of measure workforces ever, coming in, like entering the workforce en masse. And the fact that like you have for the first time ever Gen Z, Millennial, Gen X, Boomer. You have like 4 or 5 generations in the workforce at the exact same time. It's just
competing with
each other because we're on this hamster wheel that continues to accelerate. Anyway, look, obviously we could do a part 2. It's so funny that it took us so many times to reschedule. And then like we finally get here and I'm like, dang, like, I could go for like another hour, but I want to respect your time. I want to respect our time. Before we let you go, where can people learn more about your organization? Where can they connect with you? Like, list it all here. We'll put it in the show notes, but please go ahead.
Oh, like, comment, share. No, I'm just kidding. I am not a YouTuber. Our website is the best place to go, www.aspiritech.org. I'm also super active on LinkedIn, and I love to talk about workplace culture. So feel free to follow me there as well.
Tara May, CEO, mother, speaker, investor, all around dope person. Thank you so much for being a guest on Living Corporate.
New friend, I hope.
New friend. Absolutely. And friend of the show. Let's make sure that we keep in touch. Till next time, y'all. Peace.
Thank you for having me.
Living Corporate is a podcast by Living Corporate LLC. Our logo was designed by David Dawkins. Our theme music was produced by Ken Brown. Additional music production by Antoine Franklin for Musical Elevation. Post-production is handled by Jeremy Jackson. Got a topic suggestion? Email us at livingcorporatepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us online on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and living-corporate.com. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned.